Welcome to Research Perch from the Massage Therapy Foundation. Short, practical insights into massage therapy research and how it can benefit your practice.
Hey, welcome to Research Perch, the podcast produced and offered to you by the Massage Therapy Foundation. I'm Ruth Werner, a past president of the Massage Therapy Foundation, and I am here with two amazing people. My usual partner in crime, Dr. Jerrilyn Cambron, our current president of the Massage Therapy Foundation, and we're so excited to bring with you today the author of the paper that we're going to be talking about. And this is Portia Resnick, a PhD candidate at the Department of Kinesiology, Kinesiology and Rehabilitation Science at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in Honolulu. Portia is joining us from Honolulu today, and we're very happy to have her here. Welcome, Portia.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here and to be part of this.
Yeah, we're
Yay.
really happy to have you here. It's an exciting thing, and we're hoping to do more research perches where we can invite authors to join us for these conversations. The paper we're talking about today was published at the International Journal of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork. That is the online peer-reviewed academic journal that is published by the Massage Therapy Foundation. And it is free full text, so anyone who's listening to this who might like to get access to this article, you can access the whole thing without a subscription fee. And the name of the article is Comparing the Effects of Rest and Massage on Return to Homeostasis Following Submaximal Aerobic Exercise, a case study. So it's a long and complicated title, but Portia, I'm going to try and paraphrase this, which is that what you did was compare what happened when a person who had been exercising for a while, not at peak capacity, but a person who had been exercising, and in one instance you measured some things when she just rested after her exercise, and in another instance you measured those same things when she received massage after that exercise. Is that a decent synopsis of what this title means?
Yes, it's a decent synopsis. And when we say submaximal exercise, we're talking about 80 to 85% of a maximum heart rate. So anybody who's done any exercise, we know how we can calculate our maximum heart rate, or you can even look on the internet. There's a couple of good calculations, a real simple one, 220 minus your age, and that gives you your maximum heart rate. So she was at about 80 to 85% of what her maximum heart rate is. And then if you want to even translate that, those people who work with a lot of marathon runners, triathletes, that's about what their training should be at, about 80 to 85% of their maximum heart rate.
Right. Well, and I'm glad that you defined that, because that presents a little bit different picture in my mind about how hard this person was working on the treadmill. Yeah, so I'll just set us up with a quick overview of the introduction, and then I would love for you and Jerrilyn to talk about what you did and the results and what they, how we can make some sense out of them. And because we're doing this research perch in a different format, if things go the way we're hoping, then I will actually be able to get these charts and graphs up on the screen so that viewers can follow along. And so just cross your fingers. It might work. It could work. Stranger things have happened. So a quick overview of your introduction. I'm really happy that I'm the one who gets to do this, because as it happens, I'm working on a small project right now where the hole in the literature about how massage works for people in the context of exercise is just gaping. It is the Grand Canyon of absence in the literature. We have all these ideas about how massage is, helpful for people who are recovering from exercise, but there's actually almost no data on this at all. And so what you did with your one client in this university setting was attempt to answer some of these questions. What does massage really do for people in the context of post-exercise recovery time? In a way that's less about the person's subjective reportings, saying, I feel better when I get massage after I run a marathon, and more about some clinical hard data findings about measures of metabolic changes. And it just is, it's a little appalling to me that we have had to date no study looking at the effects of massage on metabolic responses during recovery in this kind of exercise. And I'm thrilled that you were able to collect some data on this, and I really, really hope it um, piques the interest of people who are interested in exercise science.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Portia's introduction does. Is it points out that we have a monumental lack in the literature, and then she gathers some information on how these metabolic sorry these metabolic measures have been used in other kinds of settings. And so I'll let you talk, you guys, about the EPOC and some of these other, heart rate variability and so on, to talk about how they reflect changes in our metabolic state. Go.
So Portia, can you kind of go through what exactly happened during this case report?
Yeah, so this was and kind of important to realize this was started off as a class project. So I was taking a class in metabolic analysis, exercise physiology, and they said, okay, let's do this. Let's look at exercise and then have massage follow that. And since the class was metabolic analysis, we were looking at excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. And many of us, when we're taking our physiology classes in massage school, we learn this term oxygen debt, that we have oxygen debt that we have to pay back after exercise. And it's really not, that's really not the correct term for it. The correct term is this EPOC, this excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, where our metabolic rate increases following exercise as we rebuild our stores and try to recover from exercise. So that's what we were looking at, is the metabolic costs of exercise is not just what we burn during exercise, but what we're burning as well afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And so you also collected heart rate variability. How does that tie into EPOC?
Heart rate variability, it wasn't particularly supposed to tie into EPOC. That was kind of more of a curiosity question from my professor. So he said, oh, if you're going to collect this, let's collect heart rate variability data at the same time and just see, because it was one extra step. So when we talk about heart rate variability, we're talking about the variation between interbeat intervals, or R to R intervals. If you remember what an EKG looks like, we have the QRST complex, the R wave right up at the top. So we're counting the milliseconds between the two R intervals. And we think that the heart beats rhythmically like a drum in a steady beat, but that's not true. If we're really relaxed and parasympathetic, we actually have a variation between those interbeat intervals. So the greater the variation, the more relaxed we are. Following exercise, we do tend to see an increase in sympathetic activity that we would note with heart rate variability. And then as the body starts to bring itself back down, we start to have an increase in parasympathetic activity, that sympathetic withdrawal, then we would get to more variation in heart rate variability.
So I just want to I want to reiterate that because it's a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is.
That an increase in heart rate variability means a decrease in sympathetic activity, right? So an increase in heart rate variability means a move toward a parasympathetic state. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Good. And I understand the mechanics of it, but from the way we think about how the heart works, it just is a little surprising.
It is.
Okay.
If you think about it, when we're relaxed, the heart kind of beats when necessary, not steadily. Like, oh, I need to beat now. Okay, now I need to beat. And it varies and it changes a little bit.
As long as it keeps going.
Yes.
So with this, you pulled in one individual, and what did you end up doing with this, and how did you measure it, and what were your findings?
So what we did, we had some data that we had already collected throughout the semester on her. So we knew what her maximum heart rate was. We knew what her VO2 max was, and maximum.
Would you define that, please? VO2 max.
Yes, I was about to do that. So no, that's okay. It's the maximal amount of oxygen that she takes in per ventilation. So it basically has to do with one breath, kind of how efficient is she? And when we start talking about athletes, the higher the VO2 max, usually the better trained they are. And then we get some elite athletes, their VO2 max levels are just astronomical, and it's their genetics, more even so than their training. So this was an average 24-year-old. She was active, not an elite athlete, very similar to a healthy individual that we would normally see in the massage setting. So we had all this information on her. We knew what her resting levels were. We knew what her maximal levels were. And then we used that to figure out 80 to 85% of her heart rate reserve. So that 80 to 85%, that submaximal threshold for her heart rate. And we had her on a treadmill, and it ended up being mostly walking uphill to get her into that correct heart rate zone. We kept her in that zone for about 30 minutes. And during that time, we collected metabolic data. So if you want to know what a metabolic cart looks like, I would say Google it, but it's basically like putting a big snorkel on their face. So all the oxygen, she could breathe in room air, but all of her exhalations were caught. We also kept track of her heart rate. And the great thing about metabolic carts is it takes all the information and it analyzes the gases for us and spits out a big amount of giant numbers. So we call that the magic box. So we collected that while she was exercising. And then we collected as well for about 10 minutes of her resting in a supine position following the exercise. And then we added our intervention. And our intervention was either rest or massage. To counteract the effects of EPOC as well as heart rate variability, we kept positioning the same. So for her resting, she was lying prone on the table, just allowed to rest comfortably for 30 minutes. Then we turned her over and we collected about 10 minutes of metabolic data. And this time, instead of using a heart rate monitor, we used ECG data, so electrical cardiographic data, so we could look at her heart rate and her heart rate variability. We collected that for 10 minutes. Then she had another 30 minutes in the supine position, and then we collected 10 minutes of final data. During the massage sequence, she was prone and received prone massage, and it was more of a Swedish type massage for its relaxation than a true sports massage. And then when we turned her over, collected the data, and then did the massage in the supine position for 30 minutes.
And
So
these two
when you
sessions,
were,
sorry, go ahead, Jerrilyn.
I was going to say, when you were collecting the data, does this only take like a minute to collect, or did you collect it like over the 30 minutes of exercise and then the 10 minutes of rest? Where exactly was the time point for these data collections?
So for the whole 30 minutes of exercise we collected data, then 10 minutes of resting immediately following exercise, then 10 minutes immediately following prone positioning, and then 10 minutes immediately following 30 minutes in the supine position. So it was 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes at different time intervals. We didn't collect any data while she was being massaged or while she was resting, because if you've ever had one of these snorkels in your mouth, we would not imagine that she was going to be very relaxed during that time. And so to get the effects of the massage, we wanted to have her not collecting any data at that time.
And maybe Ruth can pull up the figures and have you go through it in our last 5 minutes here.
Yeah, I'm just realizing when I put all that stuff away, I put away the PDF. So I'm going to encourage you guys to keep talking for a minute while I just get access to that. So
yeah, so just tell us what did the results, what did they show?
Well, so what was really interesting about the results was metabolically, there was no difference between resting and massage. So when we look at the RER, which is the respiratory exchange ratio, so the amount of oxygen that was consumed and carbon dioxide that was given off, we actually found very little difference whether she was resting or massage. Where we did find difference, the huge difference, was actually in her ventilations. So we're counting breaths, which is the great thing that this machine can do. And we found very quickly that her ventilations decreased. Following the massage, she was breathing about 7 times per minute following a prone massage, whereas following just resting in the prone position, she was breathing almost 18 times per minute. So that's a very big difference. Yeah, and then when we use that and we looked at that compared to the amount of carbon dioxide that she was producing and oxygen that she was using, we really found that she was very, very efficient metabolically from that perspective post exercise post massage. And that's really similar to values that we see with somebody who's doing like a Tai Chi or a yoga type exercise, which we thought was a great comparison. Since there is no massage comparison, we kind of picked what's the next best thing that we could look at, and it was Tai Chi and yoga.
Do you think that those results would have been opposite if you had done the massage first and then the resting second instead? Do you think there was any timing relationship to the outcomes?
Well, we did 2 separate data collection sessions, so they were on separate days.
They were 2 weeks apart.
They were 2 weeks apart, yeah. So, and we actually did the resting one first and did the massage one second. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, Ruth, did you have or you weren't able to pull them up?
Yeah, I can pull it up if you'd like to see some of the chart. So let me just bring this up. Can you guys see it? I've brought up the PDF on my screen. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, good. So rather than go full screen, this gives me a little bit more results. So this is on page 6. This is a really nice, I really appreciate these sort of timelines, so you can see what happens, one thing next, and the interventions, prone intervention, supine intervention, that in the first appointment was just rest, and then 2 weeks later, in the second appointment, these 2 interventions were the massage. Is that correct, Portia?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
awesome.
That's correct.
Good. And so here we have low frequency, high frequency ratio comparisons. And I'm sorry, Portia, but I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, so this is basically, again, another magic box situation where we take the heart rate variability and we run it through a program, and this gives us a comparison. So low frequency is going to be our parasympathetic and sympathetic output comes in the low frequency, and just our parasympathetic comes into the high frequency. So when we do this as a ratio and we do math, which we don't like because we're massage therapists, you basically come out with what's left is kind of going to be your sympathetic levels, and so the lower they are in this case, the better. So we can see the massage numbers are lower than the resting numbers. So now we know.
Okay.
Lowered the sympathetic levels.
Okay. All right. So basically, this chart means massage appears to have lowered the sympathetic levels better than the resting.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's pretty impressive, and I've seen that in other reports as well.
Yes. Yeah.
That massage can really shift the sympathetic output to parasympathetic.
So I think for our our listeners and viewers, we're better off looking at these graphs than the charts. And so if you'd like to tell us what this HF power refers to, this heart rate frequency?
That's just high frequency power.
Oh, okay.
So that's just your parasympathetic. So now we see massage numbers higher, more parasympathetic, good on this one. So a little bit of an alter.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, and then this is the one where here's the VO2 max thing, right? So this is where we really saw a huge difference between massage and resting.
So this is ventilations, is VE, ventilations, and then VO2 is the amount of oxygen that was consumed during the ventilation, which we can see was greater with resting than with the massage. And then the other is looking at the amount of carbon dioxide being given off. So again, those are going to kind of be similar numbers. So again, we see more use of of oxygen giving off more carbon dioxide with rest, much more efficient with our use during the massage.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that. Is your conclusion then that the whole turnover of oxygen and carbon dioxide just happens more efficiently during massage?
That's what it seems to be. Yes, it seems to be that the body is recovering from that perspective. Although, again, it was very interesting because what we usually look at is the respiratory exchange ratio. And that number tells us whether we're burning carbohydrates or fats. And those numbers were very similar with resting and massage. But the breathing was the big thing, that per breath, they were much more efficient.
That's so interesting. Jerrilyn, is there any other chart or table that you think we should focus on before I close this down so I can see you again?
No, we really have only about 1 minute left. And, I just want to stress that with case reports, this isn't really the typical case report that a practitioner in the field would do. This is more of a classroom exercise case report, which is also important and interesting. But, for those massage therapists out there in the world, please don't feel like you have to hook people up to big equipment in order to do a case report. Your outcome measures might be a pain scale or some sort of a disability scale. So please don't feel like you have to get this sophisticated in order to write a case report.
But I will say, for those of you who are out there, there are great phone applications that you can use now to check heart rate variability, and it automatically calculates all your data for you. So that's kind of a little sneak peek into some other things that I'm looking at as I finish up my PhD. So be on the lookout for those. But yes, there are smartphone applications. The joys of the smartphone, we can do so much with that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Just for the sake of our listeners, I had sort of primed the pump saying our challenge will be helping our listeners find a way to apply this or use this or bring this into their session rooms, and there you go. So if you are in particular working with athletes or working with people who are really interested in what massage can help them with as they are in training and wanting to have a more efficient recovery, this paper gives us a little peek into those possibilities. And we would love for you to explore what the options are with good smartphone apps to begin to track some of this, report back, write another case report.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's hugely exciting. So we love to sort of prime the pump for post-research Perch discussions, and I'll just go through these questions really fast, Jerrilyn, and then we'll have them posted with the broadcast of the research Perch. And I turned to the wrong page. So case reports are, as we've said, usually just an observational description of what happens between one therapist and one client, and this case report was quite different. And I think it would be interesting for people to discuss what makes it different from a more typical case report. Person that Portia and her team were using to run these tests was someone pretty fit. I would be really curious to see what people's predictions are on what would happen with these various measures working with someone who is maybe less fit. And for whom 30 minutes of submaximal exercise might be more taxing, to see if massage, to see if there's a difference in how they process massage. And then the third question I'd like, or the third type of hypothetical I'd like to put out there is I think we've all seen that you get better at receiving massage. Receiving massage is a specialized skill, and you get better at it over time. And I would be really interested to see if these kinds of numbers would change with someone who is a massage veteran as opposed to someone who is less experienced with that. So those are my thoughts. So we'll make sure and get those questions up. Would love feedback and input from our listeners about your experiences working with athletes who are looking at recovery times. And I want to give a special thanks to soon to be Dr. Resnick
Thank you.
for her wonderful work with this article and identifying this huge hole in the research and trying to help us explore this fascinating topic. So, anything else, Jerrilyn?
Nope. Thanks for everything, Portia. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
for-
Portia.
Thank you for having me. It was a great amount of fun to be able to talk with you ladies about
Awesome.
this.
Thanks.
Oh,
All right,
no,
and thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next Research Perch.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Research Perch. Please send feedback or questions to perch@massagetherapyfoundation.org. See you next time.